There comes a moment in every woman's life when being nice no longer feels empowering, it feels exhausting. You smile to avoid conflict. You agree to please. You stay silent to be liked. But inside there is a voice, quiet but growing louder, saying, "This is not who I truly am." Today let us listen to that voice. Today, we stop being the nice girl and start becoming the authentic woman. You were taught that being kind is good, that being sweet, agreeable, pleasant, that this is how you will be loved, accepted, protected. And so you followed that path. You smiled even when you were tired. You said yes when you wanted to say no. You tolerated what made you uncomfortable, just to avoid disappointing someone else. But somewhere along the way, kindness turned into a quiet form of self-abandonment. You stopped choosing yourself. This is what happens when kindness has no boundaries. It becomes sacrifice, not generosity. You give your time, your energy, your attention. Not because it feels right, but because you're afraid of what will happen if you don't. Will they still like me? Will they be upset? Will I be seen as rude, difficult, selfish? These questions come from fear, not love. And when your actions are rooted in fear, you're not being kind. You're performing. You may think that always saying yes makes you a good person, but it doesn't. It just makes you available. It makes you convenient. And eventually, people stop appreciating your giving. They start expecting it. That is how burnout is born. Not just physical exhaustion, but spiritual emptiness. Because every time you betray your own truth to meet someone else's need, you chip away at the foundation of your self-worth. You teach yourself that everyone else matters more than you. But here is something to reflect on. The most powerful form of kindness is one that includes yourself. A kindness that has self-respect, a kindness that knows where it begins and where it ends. Without that boundary, kindness becomes manipulation. You do good hoping for approval, for safety, for belonging. And when those things don't come, you feel hurt, resentful, even angry. Because deep down, you expected something in return for betraying yourself. You must understand, being kind is not about never saying no. It's not about being agreeable all the time. True kindness is rooted in truth, and truth sometimes says, "No, I can't do that right now." Truth sometimes says, "I don't agree with you." Truth sometimes says nothing at all and simply walks away. That too is an act of love. Love for your own peace. Many women believe that if they stop being so accommodating, they will be seen as cold, as harsh, as selfish. But that is a fear taught by a world that benefits from your silence. You are not here to be small and pleasing. You are not here to bend for every request, to cushion every conversation, to soften every truth. You are here to be whole, and wholeness requires edges. Imagine a river without banks. It spills everywhere. Directionless, powerless, but give it structure, and it carves valleys, sustains forests, becomes a force of life. That's you when your kindness is guided by self-awareness. You don't lose your softness. You give it strength. You don't stop giving. You start giving consciously, wisely, and without regret. There is nothing noble in constantly putting yourself last. There is nothing enlightened about being everyone's safety net while denying your own needs. You are allowed to pause. You are allowed to protect your energy. You are allowed to choose you. Because choosing yourself is not selfish. It is sacred. Many women are raised to believe that saying no is dangerous, that it disrupts harmony, that it creates distance, that it might make someone think you're ungrateful, rude, or even unlovable. And so you say less again and again. Even when your heart is heavy, even when your body is tired, even when your inner voice is pleading with you to stop. You say yes to avoid guilt, to avoid tension, to avoid the fear of being seen as difficult. But in doing so, you trade your clarity for comfort. You trade your peace for approval. But saying no is not rejection. It is self-direction. It is not an act of rebellion. It is an act of alignment. When you say no, You are not turning your back on others. You are turning toward yourself. You are listening to what is right for you in that moment. You are practicing something most people avoid their entire lives: self-discipline. Discipline is not about restriction. It is about remembrance. It is remembering your values, your priorities, your vision, and choosing to act in harmony with them, even when it's uncomfortable. And this is where many fall short. The nice girl wants to be liked. She wants to avoid friction. So she silences her truth to be accepted. But understand this clearly: being agreeable all the time does not make you kind. It makes you invisible. And eventually, the very people you try to please stop seeing your boundaries as valuable, because you never truly showed them. To say no requires courage. But more than that, it requires presence. You must be present enough with yourself to feel what is true, and firm enough to communicate that truth. This doesn't mean being harsh. It means being honest. It means not diluting your voice to avoid discomfort. It means recognizing that every time you betray your inner knowing just to maintain an image, you're building a life that may look peaceful on the outside, but feels heavy on the inside. It is not your job to make everyone comfortable. It is your responsibility to make yourself clear. And clarity is not cruel, it is compassionate. When you say no with integrity, you're not closing doors, you're directing energy. You're not rejecting others, you're respecting yourself. And that respect teaches people how to treat you. It teaches them that your time has value. Your space has meaning. Your presence is not a given, it is a gift. But what if they leave? What if they get upset? These are the questions that haunt the nice girl. But consider this: if someone only stays when you abandon your truth, are they truly staying for you? Or for the version of you that doesn't challenge them, that doesn't speak up, that makes life easier for them at the cost of your own well-being? Your voice was not given to you to decorate silence. It was given to you to draw lines where necessary, to create structure, to protect what matters. Saying no is not about becoming hard. It's about becoming real. It's about standing in your truth without apology, knowing that your worth is not tied to how much you do for others, but how deeply you honor yourself. Because in the end, the most powerful person in any room is not the loudest or the nicest. It is the one who can say no with peace in their heart and no need to explain. There's a subtle trap that many fall into without even realizing it. The need to be validated. The need to hear someone say, "You did well," or "You made the right choice." And for the nice girl, this need becomes a quiet addiction. She doesn't just want to be liked. She needs to be affirmed. Her sense of value begins to depend on external confirmation. Was I good enough? Did I make them happy? Did they approve of what I said or did? But when your sense of self is built on validation, you lose your center. You start performing instead of living. You adjust your words, your actions, even your dreams, not because they are right for you, but because they will win you applause. You walk into a room and scan faces for approval. You post something and check for likes. You hold back your truth, not because it's wrong, but because it might not be received well. This is not confidence. This is captivity. What happens when that validation doesn't come? What happens when the praise is silent, when no one claps, when your efforts go unseen? Suddenly, your mood drops, your energy fades, you question your worth. And that is the cost of living externally. You become unstable internally. It is a dangerous game to base your peace on opinions that are ever changing, inconsistent, and often rooted in other people's own fears. Seeking validation is not the same as seeking alignment. Alignment asks, is this in harmony with who I truly am? Validation asks, will others accept this version of me? One comes from within. The other is borrowed, and anything borrowed must be returned. That's why even when you receive praise, it feels fleeting. You're happy for a moment, then you're empty again. So you go out and try harder, do more, just to feel whole again. But true wholeness doesn't come from being accepted by others. It comes from being at peace with yourself. The moment you stop chasing validation is the moment you begin to walk freely. You no longer need to shift to be enough. You no longer weigh your worth on how others react. Instead, you begin to ask deeper questions. Does this feel right in my body? Am I being honest with myself? Is this how I want to show up, regardless of who's watching? And when those answers are yes, you walk in integrity, even if no one claps. It's not easy to break the habit. Validation feels safe. It gives you the illusion of certainty. But you must ask yourself, are you living a life that is truly yours, or one designed to keep others happy? Are your choices born from inner clarity, or are they performances crafted to avoid criticism? There is a quiet power in being misunderstood and remaining unshaken. There is strength in no longer explaining yourself, in no longer needing someone else to say, yes, you're doing it right. Because deep down, you already know. And when you live from that knowing, you become solid, steady, unbothered by praise or criticism, because both become irrelevant when you are aligned. Let go of the need to be seen in a certain light. Instead, focus on becoming the kind of person who moves with truth, even in darkness, because validation fades, but alignment lasts. Most people misunderstand conflict. They see it as something negative, something to avoid at all costs. Especially the nice girl. She believes that silence equals peace, that not speaking up is keeping things calm, that swallowing her discomfort is an act of love. But what she doesn't realize is that avoidance doesn't create peace. It only creates distance from others and from herself. When you avoid conflict, you avoid clarity. You let small misunderstandings become quiet resentments. You let repeated patterns go unchecked because confronting them feels too uncomfortable. And over time, this silence builds pressure, until one day it shows up, not as strength, but as stress, as tears behind closed doors, as a smile that feels more like a mask. You think you're keeping harmony, but really you're just delaying the truth. Conflict is not chaos, it is communication. It is an opportunity to express what matters to you. It is a test of whether the connection is strong enough to hold honesty. And honesty doesn't always come wrapped in gentle words. Sometimes it's direct, sometimes it's raw, but it is always more respectful than pretending. Avoiding conflict is often about fear. Fear of being rejected, misunderstood, labeled as too much. So the nice girl becomes agreeable. She nods when she wants to challenge. She laughs when she wants to pause. She says, "It's fine," when her heart is shouting, "This hurts." And by doing so, she trains the world to overlook her truth. But there is nothing wrong with discomfort. Growth lives there. Connection lives there. If a relationship, whether personal, professional, or otherwise, cannot handle disagreement, then it is not built on anything solid. Real connection is not maintained through silence. It is deepened through vulnerability. Through saying, "This is how I feel," and giving space for the other to do the same. You can disagree with grace. You can express anger without aggression. You can set boundaries without building walls. The difference is presence. When you are present with your emotions, you don't let them control you. But you also don't deny them. You allow them to guide you toward clarity. The goal is not to win every argument. The goal is to stop abandoning yourself in the name of keeping the peace. Because if peace costs you your voice, it's not peace, it's quiet suffering. You were not created to be a cushion for other people's comfort. You were created to be whole, and wholeness includes the ability to face discomfort with courage. You may find that when you begin speaking up, some people don't like it. They may call you difficult, sensitive, or cold. But understand, their resistance is not a sign that you're doing something wrong. It's a sign that your truth is disrupting a dynamic that once depended on your silence. And disruption is not destruction. It is realignment. Speak your truth, not to prove a point, but to honor your inner world. Speak, not to dominate, but to clarify. To allow yourself to be seen clearly, rather than constantly reshaping yourself to be accepted. And if your truth causes discomfort, let it. Because discomfort is often the first step toward deeper understanding. There is more power in an honest conversation than in a lifetime of pretending everything is fine. Pleasing others may feel like connection, but it's often a slow erasure of the self. The nice girl believes that if she can just do enough, give enough, say the right thing, meet every need, then she will be loved. That being liked will bring her peace. That being accommodating will keep her safe. So she adjusts. She softens her edges. She blends in. She becomes what others need her to be. But each time she does this, she moves further away from her own center. There is a cost to constant pleasing, and it isn't always visible. It shows up as exhaustion that can't be explained, as a quiet frustration you can't name, as moments where you look in the mirror and feel like a stranger to yourself. Because the truth is, when you shift too often, you forget your original form. You lose the sound of your own voice underneath the noise of everyone else's expectations. You start to believe that keeping others happy is your job. That if someone is disappointed or upset, it must mean you've failed. So you rush to fix, to smooth over, to absorb the discomfort, even when it was never yours to carry. But no one respects the woman who never says no. They may take advantage of her, praise her convenience, admire her willingness, but deep respect, that only comes when you stand firm in your truth, even if it ruffles feathers. When your actions are driven by the desire to be liked, your presence becomes diluted. People may enjoy your company, but they don't feel your power. And that's because your energy isn't rooted. It's floating, constantly adjusting to meet someone else's standard. But presence isn't built through pleasing. It's built through clarity. Through knowing who you are, what you value, and what you're no longer available for. There's a difference between being kind and being compliant. One comes from strength, the other from fear. True kindness has boundaries. It has discernment. It's not afraid to say, I care about you, but I will not betray myself to make you comfortable. That kind of honesty creates deeper relationships, not surface level harmony, but genuine connection. You were not put here to be easy to digest. You are not a product to be packaged and sold for acceptance. You are a living, breathing expression of truth. And that truth deserves to take up space without constantly shrinking to make room for others. Your value is not in how much you give away. It's in how deeply you remain rooted while giving. It's in how you honor your own needs, even while caring for others. People learn how to treat you through the standards you set. If you always bend, they will never learn to meet you where you are. If you never speak up, they will assume silence means consent. And if you continually abandon yourself, they will begin to believe that you don't matter. Even if they never say it out loud. But when you stop pleasing and start showing up as your full, honest self, something powerful happens. The right people will stay, the wrong ones will fall away. And in their place, you create space for relationships built on truth, not performance. Pleasing may earn temporary affection, but presence earns lasting respect. Being liked has become a silent obsession. From an early age, many women are taught to be pleasing, to be sweet, to be palatable, to fit in, to be chosen, to be praised. So you learn to filter your words, soften your tone, hold back your truth, all in the name of being accepted. And for a while, it seems to work. You're agreeable. You're admired. People say you're so easy to be around. But underneath that comfort, something begins to ache. Because being liked isn't the same as being known. It's not the same as being respected. The nice girl wants to be liked. She wants to belong. But in chasing that, she forgets who she is without the performance. Her choices become filtered through the lens of what will be received well. She hesitates to speak, not because she has nothing to say, but because she's afraid it might make someone uncomfortable. She hides her edges, not because they're wrong, but because she's been told they're too much. And the tragedy is, in trying to be everything to everyone, she becomes no one to herself. But life is not about being liked. That's a fragile goal, one that shifts depending on the mood, the moment, the audience. You can be kind and still be disliked. You can be honest and still be judged. You can be quiet and still be misunderstood. No matter how carefully you move, someone will always have an opinion. And if your worth depends on those opinions, you will never feel stable. You will always be adjusting, always be proving, always be performing. There is a quiet strength in no longer needing to be liked. It doesn't mean becoming cold or distant. It means you no longer mold yourself for temporary acceptance. It means you speak not to impress, but to express. You live not to entertain, but to align. And in doing so, you stop chasing connection and begin creating it from a place of truth. Respect is not built through pleasing. It's built through presence, through integrity, through the ability to stand in your truth even when it's inconvenient. Especially when it's inconvenient. People respect the ones who are not afraid to be seen fully, flaws and all. Not because they're perfect, but because they are real, because they have the courage to take off the mask. Yes, being liked feels good, but it fades. It's external. And when it's gone, you're left asking, who am I without their approval? That's why the deeper work is to like yourself, to trust yourself, to live in a way that, even if no one claps, even if no one notices, you still feel at peace. Because you know you stayed true. You don't need to be everyone's favorite. You don't need to be easily understood. You just need to be whole. And wholeness means being willing to disappoint others. If it means being honest with yourself, it means being okay with someone misunderstanding your silence, your boundary, your distance. Because you know it came from clarity, not cruelty. Not everyone will like you. That's not a failure, it's freedom. Because it means you are no longer here to perform. You are here to live, to lead, to love with depth, not decoration. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be real.